On my 72nd birthday, my 8-year-old granddaughter handed me a folded napkin and asked, "Grandpa, if they take your house tonight, where will you and Grandma sleep?" The candles had not been lit. 40 people were laughing in my backyard, and my son was raising a glass to the father he claimed to love. Yet Iris stood against my knee, trembling so badly that lemonade spilled over her fingers. I opened the napkin. In purple crayon she had drawn our house, an arrow pointing away from it, and 2 words beneath a picture of me and Joanne. "Old home. Who told you we were leaving?" Iris looked toward her parents. Chandler was adjusting the birthday banner while Melody spoke to a man in a gray suit beside an unfamiliar car. "Mom said you'll sign after cake," she whispered. "Dad said once your name is off the house, they can send you somewhere safe. They practice saying you're confused." A child had shown me the eviction plan my son intended to make me authorize. Before we continue, subscribe to Calm Dad Stories, and tell us in the comments where you are listening from today. My name is Charles Whitaker. I spent 40 years designing homes, and 36 years paying for the brick colonial behind me. I built the cedar study and marked my children's heights inside the pantry door. Chandler's final mark was still there. Apparently, sentiment mattered only until property acquired more value. "Are you sure?" I asked Iris. Her chin tightened, as if I had joined the adults who treated children like unreliable witnesses. "I'm not making it up." She produced a silver key, tagged with the number 214. "Mom told me to put this in your study before Mr. Bennett came inside. It opens the document box." "Why do you have it?" It fell out of her purse. I picked it up, and then I heard them talking in the garage. Iris had hidden behind folding chairs, while Chandler and Melody rehearsed. Melody would remind everyone that I once left a kettle boiling. Chandler would say, "I missed Joanne's book club pickup." Bennett would call the documents an emergency safeguard. If I hesitated, Melody would bring birthday bourbon and say the signatures were temporary. "Dad said Aunt Rachel couldn't be here until 3, Iris continued. "He said everything had to be finished before then because she reads every page." I checked my watch. It was 1:42. Rachel's flight had been delayed. My son had calculated the window when the person most likely to challenge him would be absent. Across the yard, Chandler noticed us watching. He smiled and lifted his beer. I smiled back. Because rage is most useful when the person who caused it does not know you possess it. "Did they say what the papers do?" "Mom said they make Dad the decision person." "Mr. Bennett said you and Grandma could stay here until your care needs changed." Iris swallowed. Then Dad asked how fast he could sell it. The music and smell of raspberry cake seemed to recede. For 6 months, Chandler and Melody had asked about our accounts using the language of concern. They noticed every misplaced pair of glasses, an ordinary mistake that age made easy to weaponize. I believed they were anxious. Now I understood they were collecting exhibits. Iris gripped my sleeve. "Please don't tell them I told you." "Mom said children who listen at doors break families." I crouched until we were eye to eye. "No, sweetheart. Greed breaks families. Truth only shows us where the break already is." Tears gathered along her lashes, but she nodded. I closed her fingers around the key. "Keep this until I ask. Then eat cake, play with your cousins, and act as though we never spoke. Are you going to sign?" "No." I glanced toward the gray-suited stranger. He opened the rear door of his sedan. On the seat lay a leather folder bearing my full name. Beneath it were the words, "Capacity Transfer." This was not estate planning. Someone had arrived prepared to convert age into incapacity and love into consent. I kissed Iris's forehead. "You may have saved everything your grandmother and I spent our lives building." She ran toward the children, carrying a secret too heavy for someone who still needed help tying her shoes. I remained beside the untouched cake and watched Chandler welcome Bennett through my gate. My son believed I would leave my birthday poorer, powerless, and grateful for his protection. So I steadied my hand and decided to give him the one gift he had not planned for, enough confidence to reveal exactly how far his betrayal went. 6 months before my birthday, Chandler began visiting every Sunday. Joanne thought we had finally gotten our son back. He carried groceries, changed smoke detector batteries, and called to ask whether we needed anything. Melody arrived with pill organizers we had never requested and a binder titled Family Care Plan. Concern looks beautiful when you do not examine what it is measuring. Their questions were never about whether we were happy. They were about account numbers, property taxes, insurance, and who could sign if I became unavailable. The first incident they used against me involved a kettle. I put water on the stove, answered a call from a former client, and let it boil dry. Joanne smelled the metal and turned off the burner. We laughed and replaced the kettle. Chandler did not laugh when Joanne mentioned it. He asked the time, how long I had been on the phone, and whether I remembered starting the stove. 2 days later, Melody emailed us an article about early cognitive decline. Just information, she wrote. The second incident was not even mine. Joanne moved her book club pickup from Thursday to Wednesday but forgot to update our calendar. I arrived a day late, discovered the mistake, and brought her home the following evening. Melody later described it as me forgetting where my wife was. Ordinary life was being edited into evidence. At Sunday dinner, Chandler placed the care binder between the salt and pepper. "This isn't about control," he said. "It's about making sure no one takes advantage of you." He suggested adding himself to our checking account for emergencies. I told him our attorney, Claire Vance, already held instructions for every emergency worth naming. Melody smiled. "Claire handles your estate. We mean day-to-day protection." Joanne closed the binder. "We can still manage a grocery store." Chandler's face hardened for half a second before the loving son expression returned. That flash was the first honest thing he showed us. Afterward, their attention became quieter. Melody photographed medication bottles while claiming to check interactions. Chandler offered to organize the desk where I stored tax records. When I declined, he asked why I was defensive. Every boundary became a symptom. If I refused access, I was paranoid. If I challenged a question, I was irritable. If I remembered something differently, I was confused. They had built a system in which defending my competence could prove I lacked it. Joanne saw the pattern first. One evening, she found Melody pressing the study key into soft wax. Melody claimed Iris had been playing with it. Iris was not in the room. Joanne wanted every lock changed. I said Chandler was our son, not a burglar. It is difficult to admit how much danger can hide inside that sentence. I remembered teaching him to ride a bicycle, paying his tuition, and standing beside him on his wedding day. Those memories argued for him more persuasively than any lawyer. Chandler knew love makes parents slow to recognize premeditation. 3 months before the party, he introduced Bennett as an elder planning specialist who helped families before a crisis. I asked what crisis we faced. Chandler named the kettle, calendar, and a check I had written twice after the first vanished in the mail. 3 harmless mistakes had become a diagnosis delivered by a son without medical training. "You're 71, Melody said gently. "Waiting until something happens would be irresponsible." "Something is happening," Joanne replied. "You're discussing our property as if we are absent." They retreated. Chandler apologized, and Melody brought flowers the next week. The binder disappeared. I mistook retreat for respect. In reality, they learned direct pressure would fail. They needed an event where refusing them would be harder. A birthday filled with witnesses, noise, alcohol, emotion, and the expectation that a father should trust his grateful son. Looking back, the party was never arranged to celebrate my 72nd year. It was designed to make it the last year I controlled my own life. Back at the party, Bennett did not enter through the front door. Chandler led him along the side path toward my study, avoiding the neighbors near the kitchen. An invited guest is introduced. A man brought to obtain a signature is concealed until needed. I watched through the patio door reflection while refilling my lemonade. Bennett carried the leather folder beneath his jacket despite the heat. Melody met them near the hydrangeas and handed him something small. He checked it and returned it to her purse. The silver key in Iris's pocket was not the only copy. "Charles?" Joanne's voice came from behind me. She had spent the morning arranging flowers and defending the raspberry cake from grandchildren. I hated that her celebration had become scenery for our betrayal. "Walk with me." We crossed toward the garden, where music covered our voices. I told her everything, Iris's drawing, the key, rehearsed claims, the folder marked capacity transfer, and Chandler's question about selling our home. Joanne looked toward our son and became still. They have been testing us for 6 months. I kept calling it concern. Because you're his father. She took my glass before my grip cracked it. That explains why Melody insisted on pouring your drinks. My lemonade tasted normal, but an empty bourbon glass had been placed beside my chair. Melody put it there for guests to see. If someone later described me as impaired, a photograph would show alcohol at my seat. They were not only collecting old mistakes, they were manufacturing new ones. Joanne poured away the lemonade and gave me sealed water. Nothing they hand you. We returned separately. Chandler stood beside the gifts, checking his phone. When he turned, the screen remained visible. A flight tracking page displayed Rachel's arrival. Beneath it was Melody's text. Delayed 47 min. Bennett says we can finish by 2:45. I photographed the screen behind a stack of presents. Their plan depended on Rachel's absence because my daughter read what others hoped she would skim. Chandler once complained that Rachel treated every family agreement like a contract. That habit might save us. I approached him. Your mother says that gentleman is Mr. Bennett. Chandler startled, then smiled. He was nearby and wanted to stop in. With a legal folder? His eyes shifted toward the side path. Just routine planning. Nothing worth interrupting the party over. Then why not introduce him? I didn't want people thinking this was business. At my birthday, the question hung between us. Chandler squeezed my shoulder. Dad, this is why we're helping. You get suspicious, then forget what was explained. Bennett will make it simple. He used my awareness of the trap as evidence that I needed it. I softened my face. You're right, I'm probably overwhelmed. Relief appeared instantly. After cake, he said. You, me, Melody, and Bennett. 15 minutes. Before Rachel arrives? No reason to involve her in paperwork concerning your care. He answered too quickly. I nodded, as if reassured. Behind him, Bennett opened my study using Melody's copied key. He entered a private room without permission. A minute later, the printer began running. They were preparing documents beneath my roof while children played 10 yards away. Iris passed carrying a paper plate. Without looking up, she placed the silver key beside my napkin. I closed my hand around it. Her courage gave me something anger could not. Discipline. Bennett believed his suit made him authority. Chandler believed family made him trusted. Melody believed age made me easy. They had chosen a room, a deadline, and a story in which my objections proved incapacity. What they had not chosen was their witness. Rachel's plane had landed 12 minutes early. Her text appeared on my phone. On the ground, tell Mom not to cut the cake. For the first time that afternoon, I almost smiled. Joanne did not ask whether I wanted to confront Chandler. She knew anger would give him an escape. If I accused him before seeing the papers, he could remove them, call Iris confused, and describe everything as an old man's paranoid outburst. We let them finish building the trap, she said behind the garden shed. Then we make them explain every piece. Joanne had spent 46 years beside an architect. She understood that a structure fails most cleanly when weight is placed where its designer intended. First, I found Chandler near the cooler. I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe help with the accounts would give your mother peace of mind. He searched my face for resistance. I gave him fatigue. I let my shoulders sink and glanced toward the noise, as if the party overwhelmed me. Bennett can make it easy, he said. We'll handle everything. He could barely keep the hunger out of that last word. After cake, I said. In the study, Chandler hugged me. I held my son and felt him mistake access for forgiveness. Over his shoulder, Melody smiled at Bennett. They believed the door had opened. Joanne's next move kept it open. She announced that cake would be delayed because the candles were missing. There were 72 candles in the pantry. She had moved them to her car. Melody offered to buy replacements. Joanne insisted Cole was already bringing some. Every unnecessary minute moved Rachel closer. I slipped into the garage and called her. She and Cole were leaving the terminal. Park on Ashford Street and use the rear gate. Start recording before you reach the study. Rachel's breathing changed when I described the key. bourbon glass, and flight tracking message. Dad, call the police. Not until I know what the documents contain. Suspicion is not proof. What if they pressure you? They need my signature. That gives us control they don't realize we have. Cole came onto the line. I'll wait outside the study. Say raspberry filling. And I enter. It sounded ridiculous, which made it perfect for a birthday party. Joanne sent Claire Vance photographs of Bennett, his license plate, folder, and Chandler's screen. Our attorney replied, do not sign. Request copies. Ask who Bennett represents. Record only where lawful. I am standing by. Claire confirmed no legitimate change to our trust could occur without notifying both Joanne and me. Bennett's documents were designed to bypass existing protections. We needed to learn how. Iris approached while I cleared the call from the garage display. Did I do the key right? Perfectly. Mom keeps looking for it. I knelt beside her. If she asks, tell the truth. You found it and gave it to me. Never lie for an adult, including me. She looked surprised. Won't that ruin the plan? A plan requiring a child to lie is not worth protecting. I asked her to remain near Joanne and not enter the study unless invited. Evidence was our responsibility. Iris had carried enough. At 2:51, Rachel texted a photograph of the rear gate. Here. Cole was beside her, and both phones were charged. Joanne returned the candles with a performance worthy of theater. We gathered around the cake. Chandler stood on my right and Melody on my left, positioning me between them for photographs. The bourbon glass reappeared near my hand. I moved it beside Chandler's plate before the camera flashed. Melody noticed, but the guests did not. Everyone sang. I looked at the faces around me and understood that celebration can hide two truths. Some people come because your life matters, while others come because your death has not happened quickly enough. I blew out every candle. Before the applause ended, Melody touched my elbow. Mr. Bennett is ready. Good, I said loudly enough for Rachel, hidden beyond the screen door, to hear. Let's make sure everything is properly documented. Melody's smile faltered. She guided me toward the study. Chandler followed with the folder, and Bennett waited beside my printer. Behind us, Joanne cut cake, as if nothing unusual was happening. She placed the first slice raspberry filling exposed, beside the study door. The signal was in position. So were my witnesses. The study door closed behind us, but not completely. Joanne had placed a cake server against the frame, leaving a gap for sound to reach the hall. Bennett stood behind my desk, as though the room belonged to him. He arranged 3 documents, 2 pens, and a digital tablet. My printer held warm pages bearing my name. Mr. Whitaker, crowds can be tiring, so we'll keep this simple. He did not ask whether I wanted legal advice or explain whom he represented. He began by describing my age as though it were a medical condition. I lowered myself into the chair and let my hand hover above the papers. My son says you protect families. That is exactly what I do. Then who hired you? Bennett paused. Chandler answered. We arranged everything, Dad. I asked Mr. Bennett. Bennett's smile tightened. Your son and daughter-in-law retained my office to assist with family continuity planning. From the hallway came the faint click of Rachel's phone, beginning a recording. His admission was captured. His clients were the people gaining authority, not the man surrendering it. So, you are not my lawyer? I am facilitating a family agreement. That wasn't my question. Melody placed a hand on my shoulder. Charles, you're making this harder than necessary. I looked at her hand until she removed it. No, Bennett said. I do not represent you individually. Did you advise me to obtain independent counsel? The documents contain standard disclosures. Another answer preserved. Claire had told us what to establish. Bennett pushed the tablet toward me. A box read, Capacity Acknowledgement. This confirms that you understand today's discussion. I did not touch it. May I have a paper copy? The digital process is more efficient. Then email it to Claire Vance. The room changed. Bennett recognized her name. Your existing attorney need not be involved in a preliminary review. She handles my trust. Chandler stepped forward. Dad, we agreed not to make this a production. I agreed to listen. Outside, a child laughed near the cake table. The ordinary sound reminded me how carefully the ambush had been hidden inside a family afternoon. Bennett offered to walk me through the documents. Good, I said, slowly. Each question gave Rachel another minute, and Claire another piece of evidence. In the hall, Cole photographed the office plaque inside Bennett's open briefcase and sent the firm name and bar number to Claire. Her reply reached Joanne. Bennett has 2 prior civil complaints involving disputed elder transfers. No discipline recorded. Do not accuse him. Preserve every representation. Joanne forwarded it beneath a photograph of the cake. I read without changing expression. Claire confirmed that meaningful disclosure was essential when a transaction created conflict between those arranging it and the person surrendering property. We did not need to prove a crime in that room. We needed Bennett to state the purpose, beneficiaries, and consequences in his own words. Melody began recording on her phone, aiming it toward me. She thought another camera strengthened their case. "Charles," she said gently, "can you tell us what day it is?" Humiliation rose hotter than anger. She was staging a competency test at my desk. "Saturday, May 18th, I answered. "My 72nd birthday. Rachel's flight landed early. Your car is blocking the west gate, and you moved the bourbon glass beside me twice for photographs. Would you like the time?" Melody stopped recording. Bennett looked at her sharply. Their plan required me to appear vague, not precise. I folded my hands. "Now that we established my memory, let's establish your paperwork." Beyond the door, Rachel and Cole remained silent. Claire waited by her phone. Joanne guarded Iris and the original key. Every person who loved me was doing one careful thing. Chandler and Melody had built their scheme on the belief that age had isolated me. They were about to learn that asking for help is not surrendering control, and that a family protecting an elder can be more organized than one trying to exploit him. Bennett opened the first document. This is a durable financial power of attorney. It activates immediately, but would be used only if assistance became necessary. Immediately, and only if necessary, did not belong in the same sentence. Chandler and Melody were named joint agents, but either could act independently. They could access accounts, redirect income, open credit, change insurance beneficiaries, hire caregivers, and pay themselves for services. "Who limits their compensation?" I asked. Bennett tapped a paragraph. "Reasonable expenses are permitted. Who decides what is reasonable? The agents maintain records. So they decide, pay themselves, and record their decision." Chandler sighed. "Nobody is trying to make money caring for you." "Then prohibit it," Bennett interrupted. "Restrictions can make emergency administration impractical. What emergency exists today?" He aligned the page with my desk. "Planning works best before incapacity." Yet the power did not wait for incapacity. My signature would surrender authority while I remained capable. The second document transferred our house into the Whitaker Family Continuity Trust. The comforting name concealed an unfamiliar structure. Chandler and Melody were trustees. Joanne and I were listed as residents, not controlling owners. 70% of the beneficial interest passed to C&M Residential Management. "What is that?" "A company Chandler created for tax efficiency," Melody said. I checked the incorporation date. 11 days earlier. Its address was their condominium. "Why does your new company receive 70% of my house?" Bennett claimed it reflected future caregiving obligations and reduced probate problems. "Our trust already avoids probate. This offers flexibility." Flexibility is a word people use when they do not want to name who gains power. Paragraph 4 allowed the trustees to decide that the home no longer met our evolving care requirements. They could relocate us, sell the property, retain the proceeds, and charge management fees. No physician or independent review was required. Joanne's consent could be ignored if they claimed she shared my impairment. So Chandler and Melody can decide we need care, move us, sell through their company, and pay themselves? "That is a hostile interpretation," Bennett said. "Is it inaccurate?" His pause lasted 3 seconds. Rachel's phone captured each one. "Technically, those actions are permitted, but only when warranted. Warranted by the people receiving the house." Melody's voice sharpened. "We are your family. Who else should decide?" The people who own it. Chandler paced toward the shelves. You're trapped in wording. This is why we brought a professional. The third document explained their speed. It was a deed transferring title upon execution, not after death or incapacity, but once notarized and recorded. Bennett had filled in the parcel number. A blank notary certificate carried today's date. Where is the notary? Available remotely, Bennett replied. The tablet connects us after signing. They intended to complete the transfer before leaving my party. An attachment labeled Residential Transition Assessment recommended that Joanne and I move within 90 days to Meadowbrook Assisted Living. Its costs were listed beside projected proceeds from selling our house. Who assessed us? This is preliminary planning, Melody said. Have you visited Meadowbrook? Chandler stared at the floor. The final page showed a $5,000 reservation deposit paid by C and M 2 weeks earlier. They had chosen our destination before asking whether we wanted to leave. The proposed sale valued our home at $680,000, nearly $200,000 below its recent appraisal. A handwritten note read, "Quick family purchase, no listing." Who planned to buy it? Bennett began closing the folder. That is outside today's scope. Open it. Mr. Whitaker, you entered my study with a copied key, printed a deed on my printer, and scheduled a notary to take my home today. Nothing here is outside my scope. Melody reached for the pages, but I covered them with my palm. My hand was steady. In the hallway, a floorboard creaked. Rachel and Cole remained in position. Bennett checked his watch. He expected a confused man to sign in 15 minutes. Instead, an architect was reading the load-bearing clauses. The proposed buyer was another company formed by Melody's father, with Chandler listed as an authorized signer. They planned to acquire our home below market value, relocate us, then control the difference through connected companies. This was not a precaution. It was an extraction plan disguised as care. I looked at my son. You did not prepare for our decline. You prepared to profit from it. Chandler met my eyes, and the boy I had raised was nowhere in them. Read paragraph 4 aloud, I told Bennett. He glanced at Chandler. You already reviewed it. Then reading it should be easy. I raised my voice. Joanne, Rachel, join us. This concerns your home and inheritance. Chandler moved toward the door. Rachel isn't here yet. It opened behind him. My daughter entered with her phone at chest level, its red recording light visible. Cole and Joanne followed, Joanne carrying raspberry cake. Chandler's face changed as he understood the delay had not protected him. I landed early, Rachel said. Melody pointed at the phone. You can't record a private legal meeting. Then stop speaking, Rachel replied. Dad invited me into his study. Bennett said nothing. Joanne placed the cake beside his documents. Your emergency can survive witnesses. I turned the folder toward them. Mr. Bennett will explain why our son needs authority to remove us from our house. That isn't what it says, Chandler insisted. Good. Read it. Bennett began with the quick rhythm lawyers use when they want language heard but not absorbed. I stopped him. Slowly. Replace current residents with our names. His jaw tightened. If the trustees determine that Charles and Joanne Whitaker's evolving care requirements can no longer be met at the primary residence, the trustees may arrange alternative accommodations and assume discretion over disposition of the property. Joanne faced Chandler. Who are the trustees? Chandler and Melody, Bennett answered. Who decides whether our needs can be met here? The trustees. Is a physician required? No. A judge? No. Our attorney? No. Our consent? Bennett hesitated. Not with documented incapacity. I tapped the next subsection. Who documents it? The trustees could rely on family observations and any assessment they considered appropriate. Melody could claim confusion, Bennett could attach an assessment, and the people receiving the property could declare the condition allowing them to take it. Rachel asked, after moving my parents, can they sell immediately? They would have discretion to preserve trust assets. Can they sell immediately? Yes. To their own company? Related party transactions are not expressly prohibited. Can they pay themselves? Reasonable fees. Joanne remained calm. Can Charles and I remove them as trustees? Bennett turned 2 pages. Removal requires consent from successor beneficiaries or a court finding of misconduct. Who are the successor beneficiaries? Chandler and Melody. The structure was circular. Our son could declare us impaired, move us, sell to an affiliated buyer, pay himself, and prevent removal unless he agreed he should be removed. Strike paragraph 4, I said. Remove relocation and sale authority. Prohibit self-dealing. Require 2 independent physicians and Claire Vance's approval before financial power activates. If this is protection, those changes improve it, Chandler answered first. No. That defeats the entire purpose. Silence followed. He had finally said something true. Which purpose? Rachel asked. Being able to act quickly when Dad deteriorates. He analyzed your papers more accurately than you did. Melody tried to regain control. Charles performs well when challenged. That doesn't mean he manages consistently. Joanne displayed my physical from 3 weeks earlier, including a normal cognitive screening. His physician disagrees. Bennett stacked the pages. The family is not ready to proceed. I stopped the folder with one finger. I want copies. They are work product belonging to my clients. They carry my name, property description, and proposed signature. My printer produced them. Rachel moved her camera closer. Bennett released the folder. Copies may be retained for review, provided nothing is executed. Nothing will be. I moved the tablet stylus beyond reach. Then I asked Claire's question. Mr. Bennett, did you personally evaluate my capacity before preparing an immediate transfer of my home? His eyes shifted toward the camera. I relied on information provided by my clients. Chandler and Melody? Yes. The beneficiaries? Yes. That admission settled over the room more heavily than any accusation. He had drafted a mechanism to strip my control based on reports from the people who would gain it. In the hallway, a shadow moved near the gap. Iris had heard her parents deny everything. We had exposed the machinery of the plan. The next truth would reveal the voices behind it. Iris stepped through the doorway, clutching the napkin to her chest. Joanne went to her. Sweetheart, you do not have to be part of this. Yes, I do, Iris said, though her voice shook. Mom says Grandpa misunderstood, but he didn't. Melody's face tightened. Iris, go outside. This is an adult conversation. The child flinched. Then she looked at me, trapped between obeying her parents and protecting the truth. I held out my hand, but did not call her forward. The decision had to remain hers. She crossed the room and placed the napkin beside the deed. Her purple drawing looked painfully small among the legal pages. I drew this because Dad said Grandpa and Grandma would go to the old people's place after the papers. Chandler crouched. Pumpkin, you heard us discussing possibilities. Nobody planned to take anything. Iris backed away. You said the house would be empty by summer. You said Grandpa wouldn't remember signing because birthdays make him tired. Mom said she'd keep his glass full. And Mr. Bennett said the camera should show him answering questions. Melody glanced at her phone. The bourbon glass, competency test, and rush schedule were no longer separate details. Iris had connected them to intent. That is not what I said, Melody replied. Children mix things together. Iris's eyes filled. Then why did you tell Dad to make sure Aunt Rachel's plane was late enough? Rachel stepped closer. How would she know my arrival mattered unless she heard you? Chandler stood. She is repeating fragments without context. Provide the context, I said. What innocent conversation includes selling our home before Rachel arrives? He looked to Bennett, who was closing his briefcase. I cannot mediate a family disagreement. You were willing while I was signing. Cole remained by the door, recording. Iris opened her fist. The silver key lay in her palm. Mom gave me this yesterday. She told me to put it in Grandpa's study and not tell anyone. I forgot. Then it fell from her purse when she showed Dad the second key. Melody reached for it. Joanne stepped between them. Do not take anything from her. It belongs to us, Melody snapped. It opens my document box, I said. Iris continued before fear silenced her. In the garage, Chandler asked how soon the deed could be recorded. Melody said the remote notary would finish before Rachel arrived. Bennett warned that I might request Claire, but Chandler replied, Once Dad signs the acknowledgement, we can say he chose not to involve her. Bennett stiffened. I was not present for that conversation. You were on Mom's phone, Iris said. She put you on speaker. He stopped packing. That detail could be checked against call records. A child had turned an allegation into a preservable timeline. Melody's anger shifted toward her daughter. "Do you understand what you're doing to this family?" Iris began to cry. Joanne knelt and took her hands. "Your mother's choices created this moment. Telling the truth did not." I moved beside them. "Iris, you're finished. You don't have to answer another question." "But do you believe me?" she asked. The pain was larger than the house. She was asking whether telling the truth had cost everyone she loved. "Completely," I said. "None of this is your fault." Rachel stopped recording long enough to hug her. Chandler watched his daughter cry and still chose self-defense. "Dad, she is 8. You are turning her against us over paperwork meant to protect you. You involved her when you gave her that key." Melody said they wanted stability. Joanne pointed to the Meadowbrook deposit. "You chose our beds." Rachel pointed to the undervalued sale. "You chose the buyer." I pointed to Iris's drawing. "And your child knew we would lose our home before we did." Chandler had no explanation. His silence was not remorse. It was calculation without a remaining move. Bennett lifted his briefcase. "No one should proceed today." "There was never going to be a signature," I said, "but there will be a record." Iris took Joanne's hand and left. As she passed her parents, neither apologized. That absence told me more than every document on the desk. Bennett left first, carrying his briefcase against his chest. At the gate, he told Chandler, "Do not contact my office until I review today's circumstances." It was not loyalty. It was distance. His sedan disappeared before cake was served. Chandler tried to follow. I stopped him. "You and Melody will come outside." "So you can humiliate us?" Melody asked. "So no one can claim I gave you this house willingly." A private betrayal can be rewritten by those who committed it. 40 guests had arrived to celebrate my life. 2 people used that trust as cover. I would not pretend nothing happened to preserve their comfort. Joanne took Iris into the kitchen with Rachel. The child had told the truth once. She would not be displayed as evidence. Cole saved the recording in 3 secure locations and sent a copy to Claire. I locked the documents in my cabinet using the original key. Then I walked outside with Chandler and Melody behind me. Conversations quieted in waves. Neighbors had seen Bennett's hurried exit. My sister-in-law saw Joanne's expression. I tapped my water bottle with a fork. "Thank you for coming. 72 is not a beautiful number, but it is a privilege." A few people laughed uncertainly. Joanne gave me 46 years, 2 children, and a cake with enough sugar to shorten whatever time remains. Rachel crossed 2 states to be here. And today my granddaughter reminded me that courage has nothing to do with age. I did not reveal what Iris overheard. She would not carry the confrontation again. I need to correct something before this party ends. A lawyer came today with documents requested by Chandler and Melody. They would have granted them immediate control of our finances, transferred most of our house into their company, allowed them to move Joanne and me into assisted living, and permitted a below-market sale to a related buyer. The yard fell silent. Chandler stepped forward. "That is a distorted interpretation." I held up the first page. The lawyer read the clauses aloud before witnesses. The conversation was preserved. "If I am wrong, explain which authority the documents did not grant." "This is private." "It stopped being private when you brought a stranger into my study with a copied key during my birthday." Melody looked toward the driveway. "We were trying to protect them," she told the guests. Joanne emerged without Iris. "Protection does not require purchasing our home through your father's company." A murmur crossed the lawn. Melody's father, standing near the grill, lowered his plate. His company was named in the papers. "I had no idea," he said. Melody turned on him. "Dad, don't." His denial fractured their united front. Rachel joined us. "There is a deposit reserving 2 beds at Meadowbrook and a deed dated today." This was not future planning. Chandler's face hardened. "You assume the worst because Dad performed one good memory test." I kept my voice level. "I ran an architectural firm for 40 years. I reviewed 3 legal documents and identified your companies. If you believe I lack capacity, obtain an independent medical evaluation and take it to Claire Vance. You did neither, because incapacity was never the requirement. My signature was, No one defended him. The audience Chandler intended to use as proof of my confusion had become proof of my competence. There will be no signature, transfer, or authority. Claire will handle all contact. I am saying this publicly, so nobody is later told I changed my mind, forgot an agreement, or promised this house away. Chandler's shame became anger. You are choosing property over your son. No, you chose property over your parents. I am choosing truth over silence. He had no answer that could survive the witnesses. Melody took his arm, and they walked to their car. No one blocked them or offered consolation. As the engine started, Joanne placed the cake knife in my hand. You still have a birthday. I cut the first slice. It tasted of raspberry, grief, and relief, that losing your illusions can be the beginning of protecting your life. The consequences did not arrive with sirens. They came Monday morning, in Claire Vance's conference room, where betrayal became dates, signatures, recordings, and filings. Claire copied every page and sent preservation notices to Bennett's firm, the remote notary, Meadowbrook, and both companies. Chandler and Melody could argue intention. They could not erase the deposit, flight messages, copied key, or recorded answers. Joanne and I completed independent medical examinations. Both confirmed we were fully capable of managing our affairs, preventing our children from turning boundaries into symptoms again. Claire filed a complaint describing Bennett's conflict, reliance on beneficiaries for capacity claims, and attempt to obtain an immediate deed from an unrepresented older homeowner. Bennett withdrew from representing Chandler and Melody. His firm refunded its fee and settled after investigators found similar concerns in 2 earlier transfers. The disciplinary case continued. Evidence that protects the next person has value beyond revenge. We rebuilt our estate plan. Claire revoked every authorization mentioning Chandler or Melody, added alerts to our property title, and required 2 independent physicians plus judicial review before anyone could exercise incapacity powers. Rachel and Cole became successor trustees, but even they could not sell our home to themselves, collect management fees, or change beneficiaries. Trust should never require the absence of safeguards. Chandler and Melody were removed from the estate. Not reduced, delayed, or threatened, removed. It hurt more than expected. Deleting my son's name from papers did not delete the boy who slept on my shoulder during thunderstorms. But inheritance is not payment for shared blood, and forgiveness is not financial access. Iris received a protected trust for education, housing, and health. Her parents could not manage it or borrow against it. An independent fiduciary would oversee it until she turned 30, with Rachel as family advisor. We protected Iris because her parents had used her in an adult scheme. Chandler called 12 times in the first week. His messages moved from anger to apology, and finally fear. He said one terrible decision should not erase a lifetime. I answered once through Claire. It was not one decision. It was 6 months of preparation, 3 documents, a copied key, a reserved room, a hidden buyer, and a plan to discredit us. Contact must concern Iris and pass through counsel. Melody wrote that they wanted security. Joanne answered, security built by removing someone else's freedom is control. We did not reconcile. That was not revenge. Reconciliation without accountability would teach them that regret, after discovery, could restore access before trust returned. Iris visited every other weekend, under an arrangement reviewed by counsel. We never asked her to report on her parents or choose sides. She gardened with Joanne, drew at my drafting table, and stopped asking whether truth had made everyone angry. 6 months later, she handed me another drawing. It showed the same brick house, but no arrow pointed away. 4 people stood in front, Iris, Joanne, Rachel, and me. Above us she wrote, safe is when nobody makes you sign. I framed it in the study where Bennett spread his papers. On my 73rd birthday, there was no balloon arch or photographer. We ate raspberry cake with 6 people we trusted. Before I blew out the candles, Iris asked whether I made a wish. No, I said. I made a plan. At 72, I learned that aging does not make a person's life available for early distribution. Concern without consent can become captivity. Family titles do not excuse exploitation, And silence does not preserve peace. It preserves the conditions that allowed harm. Iris did not save me because she understood property law. She saved me because she recognized a lie and believed I deserved the truth. The house remained ours, but that was not the greatest thing we kept. We kept the right to decide where we lived, whom we trusted, and how the years we earned would belong to us.